Hey everyone, it's Saturday. That means it's Chat with Mac. We're glad to have each and every one of you join us. Thank you for everyone that's listening to us every week. Every week, yeah, for every week for the last couple of years. We're coming up upon the end of the year, so we're really thankful for the people that have continued to join us. And for those of you that are new to what we do, welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Saturday, Nadeem.
Yes, sir. Great Saturday.
It is beautiful, beautiful day, beautiful day outside. Really nice. Hey, so I want to talk about we're Microsoft Go, partner, and you have been for, good Lord, a very long time. And I know for, our bread and butter is dealing with small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses. And a lot of what we do is working with companies as far as their infrastructure, specifically Azure. What makes us, I know Azure isn't really, what's the word I'm looking for? As far as the pricing is concerned for small to medium-sized businesses, it could be a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you make it work?
So I think I understand the question that you're asking. It comes up from time to time. We'll be talking to a prospect and we'll say, well, let's just move some of these resources into Azure because it makes sense. And they might come back and say, oh, wait a minute. We looked into Azure and man, that's complicated pricing. We don't want that pricing to get out of hand because I know companies get in trouble because it's an hourly pricing. So a lot of times they don't know their workloads and they end up running them for, months and months until at the end of the month they see the bill and they're like, instead of 2,000, it's 20,000. It's like, whoa, So I think that is a little bit of a hindrance in uptake on Azure, and it's the same way with Amazon as well, and even the Google Cloud. They all price it based on hourly basis, and this is the design for enterprise. Enterprises love this because they have their own specialists who can make sure that pricing is not going to get out of hand. They will stay within budget. Problem with small businesses, you don't have the experts who know this pricing. And I mean, you probably have trouble figuring out Microsoft's traditional software offerings and how you should license that, much less how you're going to license Azure. Right. I mean, that's a whole nother beast, right? You can spend years understanding just the software side of licensing with Microsoft. It's that complex. And that's what we do is, we work with Microsoft day in and day out. I mean, we've been doing this for over 20 years now with Microsoft, and we're a gold competency holder. But a lot of times we come in to companies where they don't know what license they need. And it used to be just in the software space, right? Whether they need a volume license, whether they need open business license, whether they need a retail license. What is the difference? Why not just go get a license from, off the shelf, off a store versus a volume license? What's the difference? So they don't understand that. And there are some intricacies that you want to consider there. Now, then comes the cloud. So the cloud, like I said, it's a whole other ballgame because if you don't price it right, not just price it, but if you don't understand how pricing is handled, it can get out of hand really quick. So here's an example. Let's say you set up a machine with 4 CPUs, 56 gig of RAM, and everything is fine. And then one day you needed more performance out of that machine because your developers were doing something fancy or your engineers were running some modeling software on it. So they needed a little more power. So the admin was in Hawaii on vacation, and he said, okay, no problem. He logged in and he upped the machine. He gave it 8 CPUs and so from 4 CPUs they went to 8 or even 16 CPUs, and everything is fine. And as he was on vacation, he did this, the engineers ran their modeling software, nobody throttled it back down. Now, what happens in this case? If you don't throttle it back down, now that machine, even though it's not doing that modeling anymore, it's still being billed for those additional CPUs and the additional resources that you have. That's one thing. The other thing is that catches people off guard is bandwidth. In Azure, bandwidth is never free. Now, they will not charge you if you're putting data into Azure. They want you to put all the data in Azure, but they will charge you when you take data out. So your applications and your systems have to be designed with that in mind. So there's a lot of things you have to keep in mind, right? So one is how to take full advantage of Azure. You want to make sure that your systems are redundant, where even if one geographic region, even if North America goes down, maybe your company has manufacturing presence in China, they want that region to be up. They want those engineers over there to still be able to work, even if the US is down. It's similarly, let's say if the South Central region is down, you still want people to be able to work on the East Coast or the West Coast, right? That's in your design. The other thing is you need to now also make sure that you keep the bandwidth in mind as well, because remember, when the data is leaving a region, it is being billed for. So now when data travels from South Central region to East US, you're being billed for that. Somebody needs to accommodate that in their costing model. Right. Now these are very small incremental charges. I mean, we're talking about a few, cents, per gig of bandwidth. However, if you're doing some sort of modeling and you have a lot of data flowing back and forth, that can really add up really quick. And that's what a lot of times catches companies off guard. That they go down, they think they can do it alone, they think they understand all the licensing and how things are priced, and then when they go down this road, one month their bill comes in, and instead of the 2,000 that they expect, it's 20,000. They're like, whoa, let's just shut everything down. We can't afford this. You can afford it. It's just somebody dropped the ball. That's what happened. Mm-hmm. Now, what do we do? We've had, compared to MSPs out there, we've had considerable, I wouldn't say good luck. It was planned. We worked very hard at it, but we've had, good success in getting more and more SMBs to convert to the cloud. How did we do that? And a lot of MSPs ask us, how did we do that, right? So the way we did it, and I thought about this way back when Azure was, still, like a twinkle in somebody's eye, so to speak. So what we do is, first of all, we manage everything on the back end. Like that engineer who was in Hawaii who upped the CPUs on that server and never brought him back down. We manage it so that we are in control. Our processes, our automation is going to make sure if a machine is temporarily throttled up, we're going to throttle it back down after a certain criteria is met, whether it's time-based or resource-based or whatever have you. The other thing is we bill customers on a fixed monthly fee. At the end of the day, that's what matters to customers. When they go in and they're like, one option is we're going to bill you by the hour. That's going to fluctuate. It's going to change every month. Or, hey, we're going to charge you this much every month. It's not going to change unless you add more resources or you have us, you add another user or whatever have you. So let's say, we price infrastructure for 40 users. You add, 10 more users. Well, that's going to change the pricing. And that's all designed. That's how we price it. We actually price it based on the number of users, right? So if you have, let's say 30 users, is going to cost you this much, and then this much per additional user. Now it's a very well-known cost per user. It's not that unknown. It's not jumping from 2,000 to 20,000, which I'm not exaggerating. It has happened, and it has scared companies from ever trying the cloud again. And I've actually talked to a company where they had a situation like this, and I was talking to their, internal IT guy, and, just asking them a few questions. I knew very quickly that the person who designed this and who came up with this, all that, didn't really understand all the intricacies of how things are billed. Right? You need to understand how bandwidth is built for, how storage is built for. When you you can very easily set up replication for 2 SQL servers between 2 regions. right? That's very easy to do, but you want to keep into take account of in your calculations that when you are setting up that replication, if it's between two regions, then you are paying for that traffic leaving one region. You're not paying for that traffic coming into a region, but you're paying for it leaving a region. Same thing happens with, for example, there might be somebody who's using RDP servers or in the cloud, so server-based computing, and they may have file shares. So in Azure, just like you can have a server and you can have a share on a server, you can have a share directly in Azure. So you can connect to it from any machine, workstation, server, whatever have you. Now, if you have that file share sitting in, let's say, South Central region, and you have a server sitting on the East region, and that server is accessing that file share, and there's a lot of copying going on, people are working, so there's always flow, you better make sure you account for that traffic going from that server to that file share. And then that file share going back to that server, because these are two different regions. You're getting billed both ways. That's where the expertise come into play, where you want to make sure that whoever's designing your infrastructure understands things very well. And at the end of the day, what I say is leave it to your MSP to figure that out. Get with them, tell them, hey, give me a fixed monthly fee for this infrastructure. I'm not going to pay a dime more. This is what I'm going to pay. You manage the backend. That's easy. It's easy for companies like us where we have our processes and automation all in place. And we've got a lot of intellectual property built around this. And that's why we only work with Azure workloads. We do work with Amazon a little bit, but not AWS, but not that much. I mean, Azure is like, all day long. I mean, just to give you a comparison, our AWS is less than 1% of our total that we're doing in Azure, less than 1%, right? And we're doing a lot in Azure. I mean, when something happens and when we call in, we get people's attention because we do a lot of business with Microsoft in Azure. Now, so when you are reaching out to your MSP, when you are considering going to the cloud, try to get that fixed monthly fee from your MSP. If they screw up and they make a mistake and there is an overage, that's on them.
That's not on you, yeah.
That's not on you, right? And if they number one, if your MSP has the right processes in place, they will give you that fee because that's what they do, that fixed fee. But if they don't, and they do give you a fixed fee, it's only a matter of time when things go south and all of a sudden one day you try to call your MSP and nobody's answering because they're out of business because so and that has, I don't know of MSPs that have gone out of business, but I know of MSPs that have gotten close to the brink of that, where they were like struggling. They were like, damn, we need some money. We need some money now. We need to tap into our, line of credit or whatever have you. So that situation can be pretty dire. So, it always helps to get an expert. It helps to get a brain that understands that field. Like I might be good at understanding one thing. I'm not good at understanding everything. Like, when something happens and I need somebody to do something on the legal side, I don't try to do it myself. I go to the legal expert, right? I go to a lawyer. Same thing when, something happens and I need somebody to, check out my health. I go to a specialist. I go to the expert, a doctor. And, the same way when you're thinking about moving resources in the cloud, go to the expert who does this all day, day in and day out, because there's a lot of small things. Some of the examples I gave, these are just the big things that are easy for everybody to understand. There's a lot of things that come into play where you end up paying a fee on an hourly basis, and on the face of it, it's not that much, but things add up really quick in the cloud. So for example, if you're paying per MB of storage, Well, it's very easy to take up 5-6 terabytes of space. We have a lot of customers who are in that capacity, which is amazing in itself because, just a few years ago, who would have thought, 5 to 6 terabytes in the SMB space? Who needs that much capacity? But we have customers who are, well over that number, and data is just growing exponentially.
Yeah.
And you're saving it. Yeah, it's a very low per meg cost, but it adds up. And then you throw in the fee to move it between regions, and you need to move it between regions because you want it to be redundant. You don't want you don't want the San Antonio data center going down and then you not able to access your data, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want a data center to burn down and you not be able to access your data. Mm-hmm. In this day and age, that is not an option, So that those are some of the things that I would always highly recommend that you get with an expert, get all the ins and outs of it before trying to get to the cloud. So the question is, of course, writing on this, the next question becomes, well, we're not even sure what we need to move into the cloud. We need to, our developers or our in-house guys need to test some things, some workloads. What do we do? Because we don't even know. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. So how can we find out what are some of the workloads that are good to move to the cloud? So get with your MSP. A lot of times your MSP can get you trial licenses. Microsoft can also get you some trial licenses. And sometimes, depending on your MSP, they can be extended. So that way you can try things out. Make sure your architecture is good and conducive to the cloud, and then get with your MSP and get that fixed monthly fee, and everything is good. So, you don't want to do this alone because it is. If you thought Microsoft's software licensing was complex, then you're not going to be able to get all the ins and outs of their cloud pricing. Because the software pricing is a drop in the bucket. Cloud pricing is the whole ocean.
Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I wish I could say I followed all of that, but I learned a lot. If you, however, need more help, and I know a lot of people, you're with a break fix guy that doesn't really know this type of very intricate detail, that's where we can help. Shoot me an email, mac@PC.Solutions.Net. We'll get you on the Dean schedule so you can have a more detailed conversation about that.
Yeah, and we're always happy to, we're all techies here. We love talking tech. So if you have a question, we'll talk about it. We'll give you all the ins and outs, just yesterday I was talking to a company in Canada. They just had a few questions and I'm like, yeah, no problem. We'll try to answer best we can. And we did point them in the right direction. We can't, we don't have a presence in Canada, so we weren't really gonna be able to put them on our plan where we bill them because there are some restrictions, which country you have presence in, and Microsoft kind of frowns on that if you go into a new region that you're not set up with presence. Yeah. So I told them, I can't really work directly on their infrastructure, but I can give them some guidelines on how they can get with a local MSP and make sure that they are getting the best bang for the buck and designing their infrastructure in a way that takes, not just is it cost effective, but takes full advantage of the cloud. And that's why a lot of times, a lot of systems, you have to re-architect them for the cloud because otherwise you're not taking full benefit of the cloud. Yeah. So I think we've killed cloud today. We've just scratched the surface. There's so much complexity when it comes to pricing in the cloud. But hopefully that gives you a little insight into which way to go when you are thinking about moving your infrastructure in the cloud. Find an MSP, find somebody who can do fixed monthly cost for you, and then let them handle the backend so that way you're not responsible for that overage when it hits, right? So if somebody screwed it up and you get hit by an overage, that's on your MSP. So everybody, with that, I think we'll call it a day. We're already 20 minutes. We get talking and time just flies.
Well, we'll see everybody next week. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, look out because the next maybe 2 conversations we're going to have, And these are honestly, I love these when we do these. It's Nadim's year in review, and then Nadim's crystal ball, where he gives us a little bit of insight into what he thinks are going to be some changes coming in the new year. So look out for that. I love those two.
Yeah, and just to say this, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do have access to a lot of information.
Yep.
That's what I base my predictions on, not a crystal ball.
Awesome.
Everybody have a great day and be safe out there.
Have a good one.